At the dawn of the 19th century, two revolutions on opposite sides of the Atlantic would intertwine in ways history has largely forgotten. This is the story of unlikely allies, Polish soldiers and Haitian revolutionaries, who fought under Napoleon's banner yet ultimately chose freedom over empire. Napoleon's Forgotten Legion, the Poles and Haitians who rewrote two revolutions. In the late 18th century, Poland, once one of Europe's largest kingdoms, faced existential crisis. A proud nation with a celebrated constitution and centuries of tradition stood on the precipice of oblivion. Russia's Catherine the Great, Prussia's Frederick the Great, and Austria's Maria Theresa, three imperial powers circling like vultures. Between 1772 and 1795, they methodically carved up Poland in three successive partitions. By 1795, the unthinkable had occurred. Poland, a nation that had stood for 8 centuries, had been wiped from the map of Europe. Its territory divided, its people subjugated by foreign powers, its very existence denied. The partitions of Poland represented one of history's great national tragedies. Imagine your country simply ceasing to exist. No government, no army, no diplomatic recognition. This was the reality for Poles at the end of the 18th century. Thousands of Poland's elite fled into exile, carrying with them a burning desire to restore their homeland. From Paris to Vienna, they formed communities united by a shared dream, to see Poland reborn. Their rallying cry became, "For our freedom and yours." A radical notion that Poland's liberation was intrinsically tied to the liberation of all peoples fighting against oppression. But an ocean away, on the lush tropical island of Hispaniola, another people were about to embark on their own revolutionary struggle for freedom. A struggle that would, through the strange twists of history, become intertwined with Poland's fate. Saint-Domingue, modern-day Haiti, the crown jewel of France's colonial empire. By the 1780s, this Caribbean colony had become the single most profitable colony on Earth, producing 40% of the world's sugar and 60% of its coffee. This enormous wealth rested on a foundation of unspeakable human suffering. Over 500,000 enslaved Africans toiled in conditions so brutal that plantation owners calculated it was more profitable to work people to death and purchase replacements than to ensure their survival. Saint-Domingue was called the Pearl of the Antilles for its immense wealth. But this came at an unspeakable human cost. The average life expectancy for an enslaved person on these plantations was just 7 years. The system wasn't just exploitative, it was genocidal. When revolution erupted in France in 1789, its ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity resonated across the Atlantic. The contradiction was stark. How could France proclaim the rights of man while maintaining the most brutal slave colony in the world? In August 1791, after a secret voodoo ceremony at Bois Cayman, the enslaved population of Saint-Domingue rose up in a coordinated rebellion that would shake the foundations of the Atlantic world. Led by a formerly enslaved man who would emerge as one of history's great military leaders, Toussaint Louverture. And in Europe, as Poland languished under foreign occupation, a brilliant young general was rising through the ranks of revolutionary France. Napoleon Bonaparte, a man whose ambitions would reshape the map of Europe, and unexpectedly bridge these two seemingly separate struggles. Two nations, torn from the map by imperial powers, two peoples, fighting to reclaim their destiny. Their paths were about to converge in ways no one could have foreseen. By 1796, Napoleon Bonaparte had risen from obscure Corsican origins to become France's most celebrated general. His victories in Italy electrified Europe and offered a tantalizing prospect to those living under foreign oppression. Perhaps the old order could be overthrown. 4 displaced Poles watching Napoleon's meteoric rise. Hope began to flicker. Here was a man redrawing the map of Europe through sheer force of will. Could he be the one to restore their homeland? In 1797, Polish General Jan Henryk Dąbrowski approached Napoleon with a bold proposal. Allow him to form Polish legions to fight alongside French forces. These Polish soldiers would battle for France in the hope that France would, in turn, help resurrect Poland. Thousands of Polish men, nobles and peasants alike, flocked to join what became known as the Dąbrowski legions. For them, Service under the French tricolor was a path to eventually raising the white and red banner of Poland once more. Their spirit was captured in a military song that would later become Poland's national anthem. Poland has not yet perished so long as we still live. What foreign force has taken from us, we shall retrieve with the sword. The Polish soldiers quickly earned a reputation as some of Napoleon's most effective and loyal fighters. Especially notable were the Polish lancers of the Imperial Guard. Elite cavalry troops feared across Europe for their skill and bravery. At battles from Spain to Russia, when Napoleon needed a critical position taken, he often turned to his Polish troops. When Napoleon entered Warsaw in December 1806, the city erupted in celebration. After more than a decade under foreign rule, Poles dared to believe their nation might be reborn. Napoleon established the Duchy of Warsaw. Not a fully independent Poland, but a French client state that revived Polish governance and cultural institutions. For the first time since the final partition, Poles had a state they could call their own. Napoleon's creation of the Duchy of Warsaw gave Poles their first taste of self-governance in over a decade. Napoleon abolished serfdom and introduced the Napoleonic Code, bringing revolutionary ideals of equality before the law. For many Poles, Napoleon was not just a military leader, he was a messianic figure who would restore their nation. The humid air of Saint-Domingue hung heavy with the scent of death by the summer of 1802. Napoleon Bonaparte's expeditionary force, led by his brother-in-law General Charles Leclerc, had arrived with grand ambitions to restore French control over the colony and reinstate slavery. Initially, the 20,000-strong French army had made swift progress, pushing Toussaint Louverture's forces into the island's mountainous interior. But now, an invisible enemy was decimating their ranks more effectively than any battle. Yellow fever swept through the French camps, with merciless efficiency. Soldiers who had confidently disembarked just months before now lay in makeshift hospitals, their skin jaundiced, dark vomit staining their uniforms. The disease killed without discrimination, claiming as many as 50 men per day. By August, more than half of the French forces had perished, not from rebel bullets but from the mosquito-borne illness against which they had no defense. "The men fall like flies," wrote Captain Marcel Dufour in his journal. "Yesterday we buried 30 more. The doctors are powerless. The natives watch from the hills, knowing time is their greatest ally." General Leclerc himself was not immune to despair. In letters to Napoleon, his tone shifted from confidence to desperation. "We require reinforcements immediately. This cursed fever destroys everything. The blacks laugh at our misfortune, knowing that each day weakens us further." Meanwhile, Toussaint Louverture had been negotiating with Leclerc, cautiously exploring a potential peace agreement. In a fateful meeting at Cap Français in May, Toussaint arrived under a flag of truce. The revolutionary leader, now in his late 50s, came dressed in his general's uniform, his dignity intact despite recent military setbacks. "I come in good faith," Toussaint reportedly told Leclerc. "Let us find a way forward that serves both France and Saint-Domingue." What Toussaint didn't know was that Leclerc had received secret orders from Napoleon. "When Toussaint, Dessalines, Christophe and the other brigand chiefs have been brought under your control, send them to France." The handshake offered to Toussaint concealed the shackles intended for him. On June 7, 1802, during what was supposed to be another diplomatic meeting, French soldiers surrounded Toussaint. General Jean-Baptiste Brunet, who had invited him to dinner, gave the signal. "In the name of France, you are arrested," Brunet announced as soldiers seized the revolutionary leader. Within days, Toussaint was aboard the frigate Les Heroes, bound for France where he would eventually die in the cold dungeon of Fort de Joux in the Jura Mountains. The betrayal did not produce the results Leclerc had anticipated. Rather than demoralizing the revolutionaries, it galvanized them. Jean-Jacques Dessalines, once Toussaint's lieutenant, now emerged as the movement's undisputed leader. More radical and uncompromising than his predecessor, Dessalines made no pretense about his intentions. "I have taken my oath," he told his assembled officers in the flickering torchlight of their mountain camp. "For the ashes of our brothers, for our children yet unborn, we will accept nothing less than complete independence. The French have shown their true nature. Now we will show ours." As disease continued to ravage the French forces, more local fighters flocked to Dessalines' banner. Even those who had initially allied with the French, uncertain of where their interests lay, now saw clearly that Napoleon's intentions included the restoration of the plantation system and slavery. By October, Leclerc himself succumbed to yellow fever. His replacement, General Rochambeau, embraced increasingly brutal tactics. Mass drownings, using dogs to hunt down rebels, public executions, desperate measures that only hardened resistance and pushed more moderates into the revolutionary camp. Among the French forces, a particular group watched these developments with growing moral conflict. The Polish legionnaires, sent by Napoleon to quell the uprising, began questioning their role in this increasingly savage colonial war, as disease and deception reshaped the conflict. These soldiers from a nation that had itself recently lost its independence found themselves confronting difficult questions about which side truly deserved their loyalty. The tide was turning. What had begun as a seemingly straightforward campaign to restore French authority was transforming into something else entirely: the birth pangs of the world's first Black Republic. Lieutenant Joseph Dabrowski stood on the ridge overlooking Le Cap, his uniform damp with sweat in the Caribbean heat. Behind him, 24 fellow Polish soldiers waited in tense silence. 3 years earlier, they had joined Napoleon's forces with dreams of eventually liberating their own homeland. Poland had been partitioned out of existence in 1795, carved up by Russia, Prussia, and Austria. The Polish Legion had formed under French command with a slogan that spoke to their deepest aspirations: "For your freedom and ours." Now, in the blood-soaked soil of Saint-Domingue, those words had taken on a bitter irony. "They sent us here to fight against people seeking the very freedom we ourselves desire," Dabrowski said quietly to Sergeant Wincenty Kobylanski beside him. "How can we continue to serve as instruments of their oppression?" The Polish soldiers had arrived as part of Napoleon's expeditionary force, approximately 5,200 men from the Dabrowski and Niaziewicz legions. Initially, they had followed orders, fighting against the Haitian revolutionaries in several engagements. But gradually disillusionment had set in. The brutality of General Rochambeau's tactics shocked even veterans of European warfare. After Toussaint's capture, the French commander had instituted a regime of terror, mass executions, drownings, and torture. Polish units were often assigned to carry out these atrocities, being viewed by the French officers as expendable foreigners. Last week, they ordered Wojciech's company to execute those families near Jeremy, Kobylanski said, his voice tight with suppressed anger. "Children, Joseph. They were ordered to kill children." Dabrowski nodded grimly. Wojciech refused. His entire unit is now imprisoned awaiting court-martial. The parallels to their own nation's fate became impossible to ignore. Like the Haitians, Poles knew the bitter taste of foreign domination. They recognized in the eyes of the revolutionaries the same fire that burned in their own hearts, the unquenchable desire for self-determination. What cemented the Poles' change of heart was their treatment by their French commanders. Originally promised citizenship and honorable service, they instead found themselves used as cannon fodder, sent to the most dangerous engagements and given the worst provisions. Yellow fever tore through their ranks just as it did through the French, but with even less medical attention provided. Captain Grabowski, a respected officer among the Polish troops, had been keeping a careful tally. Of our original 5,200, fewer than 2,700 remain. He reported during a secret meeting in late October 1802. "At this rate, none of us will see Poland again." The final breaking point came when a group of Polish soldiers witnessed the execution of a captured Haitian officer who, before his death, called out to them in their own tongue. He had learned a few Polish phrases from previous deserters and used his final breath to remind them, "Poles, why do you fight for those who divided your country? We fight for the same thing, liberty." That night, Lieutenant Dabrowski made his decision. "I will no longer fight against freedom even if ordered," he told his closest comrades. "Who stands with me?" One by one, small groups of Polish soldiers began slipping away from French encampments. Some went individually, others in small units of trusted comrades. They made their way through dense forests and mountain passes to reach Dessalines forces. The first deserters were viewed with suspicion, but they proved their loyalty by sharing valuable intelligence about French positions and tactics. Jean-Jacques Dessalines, initially wary, came to respect these European allies. "They understand what it means to lose everything to conquerors," he reportedly told his officers. "And they fight with the desperation of men who have nowhere else to go." By early 1803, several hundred Polish soldiers had joined the Haitian revolutionaries. They brought military training and experience that strengthened the rebel forces. More importantly, They brought an understanding of European battle tactics that helped counter French strategies. The Polish deserters taught Haitian fighters improved artillery techniques and helped organize more disciplined infantry formations. In return, the Haitians showed them how to survive in the island's challenging terrain and climate. During the Battle of Verdières, in November 1803, Polish artillery units served alongside Haitian forces in what would become the final major engagement of the revolution. Their contribution proved decisive in several key moments of the battle. As news of the Polish defection spread through the remaining French forces, it further damaged already collapsing morale. If these European soldiers could recognize the justice of the Haitian cause, what did that say about the French mission? We fight not just for Haiti's freedom, but for the principle of freedom itself, Dabrowski told a gathering of Polish and Haitian soldiers after a successful engagement. Perhaps someday, when Poland needs allies in her own struggle, the world will remember what happened here. The Poles' battle cry, "For your freedom and ours," echoed through the mountains of Haiti. No longer an irony but a sacred bond between two peoples separated by oceans but united in their quest for self-determination. On the morning of January 1, 1804, in the town square of Gonaïves, Jean-Jacques Dessalines stood before a crowd that had gathered despite the early hour. The air thrummed with anticipation. Beside him stood his generals, Henri Christophe, Alexander Pétion, and others who had fought through 12 years of revolution. Among them, notable by their fair complexions and foreign features, stood several Polish officers, their uniforms modified with the red and blue colors of the revolution. Dessalines unfolded a document and began to read in a voice that carried across the square, "The Independence Proclamation of Haiti." The crowd erupted in cheers as the general declared, "I have given the French cannibals blood for blood. I have avenged America." When silence finally returned, he continued with words that would echo through history. "We have dared to be free, let us be thus by ourselves and for ourselves." Haiti had become the second independent nation in the Americas and the first black republic in the world, a nation born of slave rebellion. The victory had come at a staggering cost. Nearly half the population had perished during the 13-year struggle. In the months that followed, the new government turned to the monumental task of establishing a functioning state. The Constitution of 1805 would be their foundation, and its drafting revealed much about the new nation's values and the unique bond formed with their Polish allies. On May 20, 1805, the Constitutional Assembly convened in Port-au-Prince. The deliberations were passionate, reflecting the diverse visions for Haiti's future. General Christophe argued for a centralized, militarized state capable of repelling expected French attempts at reconquest. Pétion advocated for greater regional autonomy and protection for the class of free people of color. Through weeks of debate, a document gradually took shape. Article 12 of the Constitution contained a remarkable provision. "No white man of whatever nation he may be, shall put his foot on this territory with the title of master or proprietor, neither shall he in future acquire any property therein." This reflected the bitter experience of slavery and colonization, establishing Haiti as a land where white domination would never again be permitted. Yet the next article contained an equally remarkable exception. The preceding article cannot in the smallest degree affect white women who have been naturalized Haitians by government, nor does it extend to children already born, or that may be born of the said women. The Germans and Polanders naturalized by government are also comprised in the dispositions of the present article. General Antoni Pajerski, representing the Polish soldiers in the assembly, stood to explain the amendment he had proposed. "We came as reluctant invaders, but we leave as brothers in your struggle," he said. "We understand too well the yoke of foreign control, having seen our own nation erased from the map of Europe." The constitutional recognition was more than symbolic. It granted the Polish veterans Haitian citizenship and the right to own land, rights denied to all other whites. Approximately 400 Polish soldiers chose to remain in Haiti, forming small communities in places like Cazal, Fond-de-Blancs, and La Baline. Dessalines himself supported the special status granted to the Poles. "These men turned away from empire to stand with us," he reportedly said during the debates. "They showed that liberty matters more than the color of skin. We shall remember this." The Polish soldiers integrated into Haitian society, marrying local women and adopting local customs while maintaining elements of their heritage. Their descendants became known as Polon or Polak, communities with distinctive features and traditions that blended European and African influences. Meanwhile in Europe, Poland remained partitioned. News of their countrymen's role in Haiti's revolution traveled slowly back to Polish patriots. But when it did, it became part of their own narrative of resistance. The phrase, "For your freedom and ours," gained new meaning, now connected to a successful fight for liberty beyond Europe's borders. When Poland finally regained independence after World War I, its new 1921 constitution bore the marks of this legacy. While drafting the document, Senator Kazimierz Dlusky, whose uncle had fought in Saint-Domingue, proposed language emphasizing Poland's commitment to the self-determination of all peoples. Article 95 of the Polish Constitution stated, "The Republic of Poland guarantees on its territory full protection of life, liberty and property to all citizens, without distinction of origin, nationality, language, race or religion." While such sentiments were not uncommon in post-war European constitutions, for Poland, they carried the additional weight of their historical connection to Haiti's struggle. In both countries, these constitutional provisions represented more than legal frameworks. They embodied aspirations born in blood and sacrifice. Haiti had secured independence but faced the challenge of building a nation amid international isolation and internal divisions. Poland had regained statehood but would soon face new threats to its sovereignty. Yet through their constitutions, both nations affirmed principles that transcended their immediate circumstances. That freedom is universal, that solidarity can cross boundaries of race and geography, and that those who have known oppression have a special responsibility to recognize and support others' struggles for dignity and self-determination. The small village of Cazal sits nestled in the hills north of Port-au-Prince, its modest homes scattered across the tropical landscape. Here, amid the mango trees and the rhythm of Creole conversations, live the descendants of Polish soldiers who chose Haiti as their home over 2 centuries ago. Their legacy persists in subtle ways, in surnames like Napoleon and Poland, in traditions that blend Catholic and Vodou practices, and in physical features that sometimes hint at Eastern European ancestry. Maria Poland, a 73-year-old resident with striking blue eyes set in her dark-complexioned face, sits on her porch weaving a basket as she has done for decades. "My great-great-grandfather was Polish," she explains. "He fought with Dessalines and married my great-great-grandmother from Arcahé. This is the story my father told me as his father told him." Such oral histories kept the Polish-Haitian connection alive through generations when formal diplomatic relations between the two nations were non-existent. Haiti, subject to international isolation after its revolution, and Poland, erased from the map for 123 years, then caught in the turmoil of World War II and Soviet domination, had little opportunity for official engagement. The Cold War particularly complicated matters. Haiti, under the Duvalier dictatorships, aligned with Western anti-communist powers, while Poland remained behind the Iron Curtain. Yet even in this period, cultural echoes persisted. In Polish academic circles, Haiti's revolution was studied as a successful uprising against imperial powers. Among Haiti's intellectuals, Poland's struggles against partition were seen as parallel to their own fight against external control. When Poland finally emerged from Soviet influence in 1989, new possibilities for reconnection emerged. In 1991, diplomat Zbigniew Galperin arrived in Port-au-Prince as Poland's first ambassador to Haiti in modern times. His first official visit was to Cazal, where villagers greeted him with a ceremony that blended Catholic prayers with Vodou rituals. "I felt I was witnessing history healing itself," Galperin later wrote. These people, separated from Poland by time and distance, nevertheless felt a connection to a homeland they had never seen. The 200th anniversary of Haiti's independence in 2004 marked a turning point. Polish President Aleksander Kwaśniewski sent an official delegation to the celebrations, acknowledging the historical bond between the nations. In Haiti's National History Museum, a new exhibition documented the Polish contribution to Haitian independence. Featuring uniforms, letters, and maps that had been preserved by descendants or recovered by historians. Academic exchanges followed. Haitian scholars visited Warsaw to study documents related to the Polish legions, while Polish researchers came to Haiti to document the living cultural legacy of their countrymen. At the University of Warsaw, Professor Janina Kowalska established the first Center for Haitian Studies in Eastern Europe. This is not merely historical curiosity, Kowalska explained during the center's opening. This connection reminds us that solidarity can transcend race and nationality, a lesson as relevant today as it was 2 centuries ago. The most visible symbol of renewed ties came in 2011. when the Polish government funded the restoration of the Polish quarter in Fond de Blancs, where descendants of Polish soldiers had established a community. The project included rebuilding the small chapel of St. Kazimierz, named for Poland's patron saint, which had stood since the 1820s. At the dedication ceremony, Polish Ambassador Katarzyna Wisniewska and Haitian President Michel Martelly unveiled a plaque reading, "In honor of those who chose freedom for others as the path to their own dignity." The 2010 earthquake that devastated Haiti prompted another chapter in this relationship. Poland was among the first nations to send rescue teams and later committed significant aid for reconstruction. Polish medical volunteers established a clinic in Kazal that continues to operate today, staffed by rotating teams of doctors from Warsaw, Krakow, and Wrocław. In Polish schools, the story of the Haitian connection has entered the curriculum, teaching students about this unique episode in their nation's diaspora. 15-year-old Marek Jankowski from Gdansk won a national essay contest in 2019 with his reflection, "The Polish soldiers in Haiti showed that our national motto, 'For your freedom and ours,' is not just words but a commitment that sometimes requires choosing sides in other struggles for justice." Meanwhile, in Haiti, the Polon communities have experienced a cultural revival. Annual festivals celebrate their dual heritage, featuring both Polish folk dances and Haitian rare music. Young Haitians with Polish ancestry have begun learning the Polish language through online exchanges with students in Warsaw. Jean-Claude Polanski, a 28-year-old teacher in Port-au-Prince, whose ancestors came from both traditions, started a social media campaign called Two Revolutions, One Spirit, that connects young people from both countries. What began as soldiers changing sides has become a bridge across centuries and oceans, Polanski says. In a world still divided by race and nationalism, our shared history offers a different possibility, that common humanity and the desire for freedom can overcome the most entrenched divisions. The story of Poland and Haiti demonstrates how historical connections can lie dormant through difficult times only to re-emerge when circumstances allow. It reveals how solidarity, once expressed, creates ripples that extend far beyond their original context. As Maria Poland in Kazal says while finishing her basket, "My ancestors chose this land and this land chose them back. Now we are Haitian. But we remember. We remember that freedom sometimes needs friends from far away." In Warsaw and Port-au-Prince, in Kazal and Krakow, this unlikely connection between two nations' struggles for self-determination continues to inspire new generations to look beyond borders and see in others' fights for dignity reflections of their own aspirations for justice.